They thought they could erase me. But I saw it coming long before they made their move. Olivia Carter's fingers trembled slightly as she clasped her coffee mug, her gaze fixed on the glass-paneled office door. The summons had been curt, delivered via email with the subject line, Meeting, 10 a.m. Conference Room B. A time-stamped corporate death sentence. Olivia's career at WealthCore had spanned 15 years of tireless dedication. She had risen from a junior analyst swimming in spreadsheets to the firm's lead strategist, a woman known for her razor-sharp insights and uncanny ability to foresee market trends. Her proprietary financial models had secured WealthCore's position as a titan in the investment world. And yet, the icy indifference in Ethan Wilkes's voice when he'd called her in spoke volumes. Ethan, the newly minted CEO with his tech-obsessed vision and disregard for experience, sat across the polished mahogany table, flanked by Monica from HR. Their rehearsed corporate smiles glinted with false sympathy. "Olivia, we appreciate everything you've done here. But the firm is moving in a different direction," Ethan began, his tone as smooth as the tailored suit he wore. Monica nodded, her eyes flicking to the stack of papers on the table, the severance package already prepared. It was clear their decision had been made long before this charade of professionalism. Olivia felt her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with a smoldering rage carefully concealed beneath a mask of calm. She offered them nothing but a nod, her silence unsettling them more than any protest would have. After all, they expected her to beg, to plead for mercy. They had no idea she was already prepared for what came next. Weeks earlier, Olivia had been jolted awake by a gut instinct she couldn't ignore. It started with a casual conversation in the break room where whispers of restructuring lingered like the stench of burnt coffee. But it was the document she stumbled upon that sealed her suspicions. Someone had carelessly left a printed memo on the shared office printer, pages still warm from the machine. The title alone was enough to chill her blood, Strategic Workforce Realignment Plan. The contents detailed a systematic effort to trim the company's older, higher-paid employees from the ranks and replace them with fresh, cheaper talent. What was more disturbing was the casual mention of leveraging proprietary tools and methodologies as company assets upon termination. They were planning to claim her life's work as their own. Her financial models, painstakingly built over years, had become the backbone of WealthCore's success. Models she had meticulously crafted, fine-tuned, and perfected with algorithms so precise they could predict market trends with eerie accuracy. The firm's quarterly gains, always attributed to Ethan's forward-thinking leadership, were in truth the result of her ingenuity. And now, they wanted to discard her while clutching her creations like greedy children. Olivia stared at the memo, her knuckles white from the pressure of her grip. This was more than a professional slight, it was a personal attack, an erasure of her legacy. The betrayal simmered beneath her skin, igniting something fierce within her. If they wanted to steal from her, they would have to fight for every last piece. The moment Olivia left the office that night, a storm of determination raged within her. WealthCore's betrayal had lit a fire that wouldn't be extinguished. She refused to let her legacy be reduced to a line item in Ethan's grand plan for modernization. The first thing she did was revisit the work she had done at home, her own personal project that had started as a simple side experiment. Olivia had been perfecting a new financial strategy tool, one so advanced it could revolutionize the industry. A model that not only predicted market trends but also adapted to real-time data fluctuations with nearly flawless precision. It was everything WealthCore's systems claimed to be but weren't. And most importantly, it was hers. Every line of code, every algorithm, every update had been meticulously documented and timestamped. Olivia knew the legal landscape well. Anything created using the company's resources or during company time could be claimed by WealthCore. But her work had been built entirely on her own equipment, during her off hours. She had made sure of that. Her meticulous documentation was not just a technical necessity, it was her shield, her weapon, her proof. Night after night, Olivia poured herself into her project, her passion sharpening her focus into something unbreakable. Each evening felt like a battle, her fingers racing across the keyboard with a determination born from betrayal. And as her new tool took shape, Olivia found herself smiling again. Wealthcore thought they had boxed her into a corner. They had no idea she was building the very weapon that would take them down. Ethan Wilkes lounged back in his executive chair with the arrogance of a man who had already won. To him, Olivia's dismissal was nothing more than a box to check off a long to-do list. She was old guard, a relic of the company's past, and Ethan had no use for anything that didn't come with a sleek interface and buzzwords like artificial intelligence or machine learning. In his eyes, Olivia was just another overpaid veteran clinging to outdated methodologies. Ethan's newest strategy was to bring in a wave of young talent, analysts armed with flashy AI tools that produced impressive graphics but lacked the fundamental understanding of market intricacies. The board was thrilled with his vision, too blinded by his charisma to see the shallow depth of his proposals. He assumed Olivia's departure would be quiet, that she would simply disappear into the shadows like so many others before her. His ego couldn't fathom the possibility that she had already anticipated his betrayal, much less that she was planning something far greater. Olivia's hands trembled as she picked up the phone and dialed the number she hadn't used in years. Robert Pierce. Her old mentor and former colleague from the days before Wealthcore's polished skyscrapers and executive boardrooms. They had been two young idealists then, working late nights at a small but ambitious firm that valued skill over pretense. Robert had gone on to build Titan Invest from the ground up, his company known for its innovative but struggling strategies. They exchanged pleasantries, but the tension in Olivia's voice must have been obvious because Robert cut straight to the point. "What's wrong, Olivia?" His voice was calm, reassuring. And so, she told him everything. From the memo to the betrayal, to the new tool she had built. His silence was thick with contemplation, and when he finally spoke, there was steel in his words. "I want to see it. Tomorrow. My office." The call ended, and Olivia's heart pounded with a mix of fear and exhilaration. She was stepping into uncharted territory, but if there was anyone she trusted, it was Robert. Whatever happened next, she would no longer be fighting alone. The day arrived with all the cold finality of a blade. Olivia stepped into the office building for what she knew would be the last time, her posture exuding a confidence she no longer needed to pretend. Her tailored navy suit fit like armor, her expression unreadable. Every step down the hallway felt like a victory march rather than a walk toward her execution. Ethan and Monica waited for her in the same sterile conference room where her termination had been rehearsed and scheduled like a mundane corporate task. The air was thick with their discomfort, their smiles forced and shallow. Ethan wasted no time getting to the point. "Olivia, thank you for coming in. As we discussed, today will be your last day. We've arranged for a smooth transition, and Monica will be assisting you with all the necessary paperwork." His words were clipped, almost rushed, as if ridding himself of her presence was more important than treating her with even a hint of respect. Monica's voice was softer, but laced with artificial sweetness. "We truly appreciate your years of service, Olivia. And we want to make sure you're comfortable during this transition." She slid the severance package across the table, the folder thick with legal jargon designed to disarm and silence. But Olivia's gaze remained fixed on Ethan's face, the edges of her mouth twitching in the shadow of a smile. "I've already found my next challenge," she replied, her voice calm, powerful. "But thank you for your concern." The words left them stunned, their masks slipping just enough to reveal the panic clawing at their insides. Olivia's composure was more unsettling than rage could ever be. She left the room without looking back, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown to something far more devastating than they could imagine. That very evening, Olivia found herself sitting in the private lounge of Titan Invest's sleek, modern headquarters. The city skyline stretched beyond the glass walls, a glittering maze of power and opportunity. Robert Pierce greeted her with a handshake firm enough to convey both respect and reassurance. His office was nothing like the sterile boardrooms at Wealthcore, it was alive with creativity and hunger. "Show me what you've built," Robert said, his eyes blazing with genuine interest rather than the dismissive arrogance she'd grown accustomed to at her former company. Olivia's hands were steady as she opened her laptop and launched the model she had poured her soul into over the past several months. The simulation sprang to life, graphs and projections morphing and adapting in real time, the precision of her work far exceeding anything she'd ever produced for WealthCore. Robert's eyes widened, his silence speaking volumes. When he finally looked up, there was a new intensity in his gaze. "This is revolutionary, Olivia. If we roll this out properly, it could shift the entire industry." His words echoed through her mind, validating everything she dared to hope for. And then the conversation turned serious. They spoke at length about the potential partnership, the legal protections Olivia had already secured, and the ruthless efficiency with which they would move forward. By the end of the meeting, an agreement was laid out. Olivia would become Titan Invest's chief strategic officer, her new model would be exclusively licensed to the firm, and she would receive a substantial equity stake in the company. More than that, Robert vowed to protect her vision, acknowledging her brilliance in a way WealthCore never had. As she left his office that night, Olivia felt the kind of thrill she hadn't experienced in years. The betrayal that had once shattered her now only fueled her. What WealthCore had thrown away, Titan Invest was prepared to cherish and elevate. Olivia Carter was no longer just an employee, she was a force to be reckoned with. The news broke at dawn, splashed across every major financial publication like a thunderclap. Titan Invest signs exclusive deal with financial strategist Olivia Carter, new predictive tool poised to redefine market analysis. The headlines were written with reverence, laced with the promise of seismic change. Olivia's face appeared beside Robert's in press photos, her poised, confident expression a stark contrast to the haunted, desperate faces she had left behind at WealthCore. Within hours, her phone was flooded with messages, congratulations from former colleagues, inquiries from journalists, and a coldly formal text from Ethan himself, "Olivia, we need to talk." She ignored it, savoring the sweet, intoxicating sense of validation. The public response was beyond her wildest expectations. Investors swarmed to Titan Invest, desperate to ride the wave of innovation Olivia had sparked. Titan Invest stock soared, its value increasing by nearly 20% before the end of the trading day. Meanwhile, WealthCore's shares took a sickening plunge, the company's facade of dominance cracking under the pressure. As Olivia watched the numbers roll in, she couldn't help but laugh at the irony. Everything Ethan had tried to take from her was now slipping through his fingers. She had reclaimed her power, her worth, her name. And the world was finally recognizing her for what she truly was, the visionary, not a relic. The following morning, Olivia's phone lit up with messages from an unexpected source, her former colleagues at WealthCore. Panic had erupted like wildfire through the firm's pristine corridors. Ethan was scrambling to contain the chaos, his voice strained and angry as he attempted to reassure the board members whose faith had been shaken to the core. They had built their empire on her models, systems designed to work under her meticulous oversight. Now, without her guidance and the technology she had refined on her own time, their strategies were crumbling. Olivia's contacts inside the company fed her updates almost gleefully. Ethan had convened an emergency meeting, his usual arrogance replaced by desperation. The board members grilled him mercilessly, demanding answers to questions he had no satisfactory response for. Their anger grew as they learned just how dependent WealthCore's success had been on the woman they had so callously discarded. And then came the frantic attempts to contact her. Ethan's emails, his calls, his increasingly frantic pleas for a reasonable discussion. Olivia forwarded every message to her legal team without hesitation. WealthCore had shown her nothing but contempt. They were not entitled to her forgiveness or her cooperation. Ethan's pride had led him to believe she would simply fade away, defeated and forgotten. Instead, she had risen from the ashes of their betrayal, stronger than ever. And now, the consequences of their arrogance were tearing their empire apart. It was only a matter of days before Wealthcore's desperation transformed into something more vicious. A formal letter arrived at Olivia's new office, thick and heavy with threats dressed up in legalese. They accused her of intellectual property theft, claiming ownership over her tool under the flimsiest of pretenses. But Olivia had prepared for this. Every piece of her model had been constructed independently, every modification and algorithm meticulously documented with timestamps, logs, and clear evidence of personal ownership. Her lawyer, a brilliant woman named Dana Cho, tore through Wealthcore's claims like tissue paper. Dana's response was curt, confident, and ruthlessly efficient. "Your allegations are baseless. Any further harassment will be met with immediate legal action." The response was sent with the same cold professionalism Olivia had been forced to perfect over the years. She refused to be bullied, and she refused to be silenced. Wealthcore had made the mistake of underestimating her before. They would not have that luxury again. It happened exactly as Olivia had predicted. As the weeks passed, the fallout from her departure continued to spread like a disease, slowly eating away at the once untouchable reputation of Wealthcore. Clients were growing restless, their faith shattered by the firm's inability to replicate the same market-defying accuracy Olivia's strategies had once provided. The very investors who had showered Ethan with praise were now calling for his resignation, their voices rising with each passing day of plummeting stock value. It was during this frenzy that Ethan made his desperate attempt at reconciliation. Olivia was in the middle of reviewing another lucrative licensing offer from a financial tech giant when her phone rang. Ethan's name glowed on the screen, but it was the pleading tone of his voicemail that made her laugh out loud. "Olivia, I realize we may have made a mistake. I think there's been a misunderstanding about ownership rights, and I'd like to have a conversation to clear things up. We'd love to discuss a collaboration that could benefit both parties." His words were drenched in false humility, the kind of groveling desperation she never expected from the man who once dismissed her without a second thought. Without hesitation, Olivia forwarded the message to her legal team. Her response was delivered the following morning, brutal in its simplicity. "Any discussions regarding collaboration will need to go through my legal representatives. Further direct contact will be considered harassment." Ethan's panic was palpable, even through a screen. His pride had crumbled, replaced by pure, unfiltered fear. And Olivia found a kind of satisfaction in knowing he was finally paying the price for his arrogance. Olivia's life transformed almost overnight. The predictive tool she had crafted was not only adopted by Titan Invest but had also been offered to several other prominent firms under carefully negotiated licenses. Titan Invest's dominance in the financial sector was becoming a reality faster than anyone anticipated. The markets had embraced her model like nothing before, investors clamoring to get their hands on the most accurate forecasting tool ever designed. And yet, the greatest reward was not the wealth or the endless parade of high-profile meetings. It was the respect. The acknowledgement of her brilliance that had been denied to her for so long. Industry publications wrote article after article about her stunning comeback. Business analysts called her tool the Olivia model, a name she found both flattering and ironic, given that Wealthcore had tried so hard to strip her of her own work. Invitations to speak at conferences poured in, requests for interviews from journalists who once couldn't be bothered to give her the time of day. And then there were the personal messages. Women from all over the country, professionals who had been pushed aside by their companies, their voices silenced by the same institutional arrogance Olivia had faced. They thanked her for showing them that resilience could be their greatest strength. That fighting back was not only possible but necessary. And Olivia's message to them was clear: document everything. Own your value. And never let them make you believe you are replaceable. Her words resonated far beyond the walls of the financial industry. They became a rallying cry for those who had been overlooked and underestimated. And Olivia realized her victory was so much more than just reclaiming her work. It was about inspiring others to do the same. The conference hall was massive, its walls adorned with banners proclaiming it to be the Financial Innovators Summit. Olivia stepped onto the stage to a wave of applause that rolled through the crowd like a crashing tide. She was dressed in her usual understated elegance, her silver hair framing her face with an air of wisdom and power. Gone were the days of cowering in boardrooms, allowing others to dictate her worth. Today, she would speak her truth to an audience hungry to hear it. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady, smooth, and filled with conviction. "Today, I'm here to talk about innovation, ownership, and something even more important, value. Not just the value of an idea, but the value of the person who creates it." The audience hung on every word, their eyes riveted on the woman who had turned the financial world on its head. Olivia walked them through her journey, careful not to mention WealthCore by name, but the implication was clear. She spoke of betrayal, of resilience, of reclaiming what was rightfully hers. But she didn't stop there. She spoke of empowerment, of how she had used her pain as fuel to create something greater than herself. The truth of her words resonated with them, her authenticity cutting through the polished veneer of the corporate world like a knife. By the time she concluded her speech, the applause was thunderous. And Olivia knew she had done more than just tell her story. She had planted seeds of courage and determination in the hearts of those who had been pushed aside. And maybe, just maybe, her words would prevent someone else from having to go through what she had endured. Back at WealthCore, Ethan was fighting for his career with all the grace of a drowning man. His every decision, his every desperate attempt to salvage the company's reputation, only made things worse. The board was in chaos, the investors were growing restless, and the employees were fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. Olivia's name was now synonymous with innovation, while Ethan's was fast becoming a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed and arrogance. His attempts to sue her for intellectual property theft were dismantled by her legal team with ruthless precision. Their documentation was airtight, their arguments unassailable. The court's dismissal of WealthCore's case was not only a legal victory but a public humiliation. Ethan's credibility was shattered, his reputation reduced to ash. But it wasn't enough for the board. His failure had become their problem, and in the corporate world, problems were meant to be eliminated. Within a month, Ethan was forced to step down, his resignation letter worded with all the empty politeness of a man who had lost everything. Meanwhile, Titan Invest continued to thrive under Olivia's leadership. And WealthCore? It became nothing more than a fading name, a ghost of a company that had once tried to destroy her. Years passed, but Olivia's impact only grew stronger. She had become an icon, not just for her success, but for the lessons she imparted to those who followed in her footsteps. Her models were taught in business schools, her journey dissected as a case study in both brilliance and resilience. And yet, the greatest legacy she left behind was not her tool or her wealth. It was her willingness to share her knowledge, to help others rise above the obstacles placed in their paths. She became a mentor, guiding young professionals who felt their worth was being overlooked. She showed them how to protect their ideas, how to stand up for themselves, and most importantly, how to value their own contributions. Olivia Carter's name would forever be etched in the annals of financial history. But what mattered most to her was not the fame or the fortune. It was the simple truth she had discovered along the way. Value is not something given. It is something taken. Something earned. And Olivia had earned hers through fire and steel. She had become the woman they never saw coming. And she had never been more powerful.